All right, Charlie, thanks so much for being back on Wicked Smart Golf twice this summer, man. Appreciate you being back.
Hey, happy to be here, and I really enjoy our time together and giving back to all the viewers and all the golfers. So anytime.
Yeah, we are growing a lot over here, and as I mentioned before we hit record, people really found your last interview very inspiring, and really just took a lot of positives from it. So thank you again for sharing so much of your own journey, and really excited to get into just all the different ways that you can help golfers, kind of between the ears, as we talked about a little bit before hitting record. The mindset piece is such a big underrated part. A lot of golfers just really struggle under tournament situations, and I figured nobody could help them out except someone that has won on the PGA Tour like yourself. So I had you here at 146 PGA Tour events, one win, one runner-up, two third places, four top five finishes, and six top tens. So first off, congrats. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. And I didn't even realize I did that well, man, because I was too focused on a lot of missed cuts. But it was a great ride for a handful of years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I learned immensely a lot about myself, a lot about the golf game, and now I'm kind of taking that over. Started teaching 4 or 5 months ago. It's blowing up, and I just people are really taking to me because I'm told of just my enthusiasm. I mean, we're in the middle of lessons. I'm giving high fives. We're cheering. And so it's been really a lot of fun for me, because if you would ask me 5 months ago if I would have ever taught, I would say, what? That has to be the worst job ever. And giving back to these people and sharing my knowledge and them just excited and leaving with a smile, it's what it's all about for me. So I'm just continuing to do that and see where it takes me.
Yeah, your enthusiasm is absolutely contagious. I felt that after the first interview, and that's why I was excited to have you back. And I mean, like, what is it like though? Like, what was the first professional event for you? Was it qualifying for a U.S. Open, or was it your first PGA event? Like, what was the first moment where you were like, I'm here, like I'm actually doing it. I'm living the dream of like so many golfers that want to get there. Was that just like a surreal moment, or are you just like so focused you don't really have time to appreciate it?
Well, here it's a great question to start this out, man. I'm at the Sony Open in Hawaii, got my tour card in December through Q School. 2 days later, I have hand surgery. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've worked my whole life to get here, and now my career is going to end. Hand surgery healed up. I go to the Sony Open. Very first tournament, haven't hit a single golf ball in 3 weeks. Played a 9-hole practice round, and I mean, I'm not going to let this opportunity. I don't care if I shoot 100. I'm not letting this first opportunity go by when I've waited my whole life. But here's the crazy thing: is I'm having breakfast with my wife at the time, and about 2 hours before my first ever tee shot on the PGA Tour, I also found out I was having a child. And so here I am. I walk up to the course and my caddy's all excited. I'm like, dude, I've got to tell you this. And he was my best friend. And he was like, you've got to be kidding. And then we go out and we birdie the very first hole. I'm like, this is a dream come true. We ended up missing the cut, but maybe only by two or three, which I saw as a huge success based on I just had hand surgery, hadn't practiced. Then we roll over to Palm Springs. I make my first cut and kind of off to the races. But yeah, that first event, just being on the range with guys that you had watched on TV and grown up idolizing, and now you're there and a peer. And another great, real quick story about I'm on the range at Sony Open. They've got cranes down the side because it's a real short driving range. And I turn around and I'm talking to one of the tour reps for 2 minutes, and I turn back around and Zach Johnson is in my spot. And I'm like, Zach, I was hitting here. And he looked right at me and he goes, you'll learn the pecking order. And right there, I was like, I mean, I'm on the range the first day, and I'm like, wow, so here we go. And understandably so, I picked up my bag and I moved down the range to another spot. And I'm like, this is how it's going to go. Meanwhile, that rep, he said, Charlie, this is where you got to learn to stand up and own who you are. Otherwise, you'll get walked over. And so I had a couple other instances like that with Keegan Bradley and stuff, where I had to step up and say something and stand up. But the cool thing was is people then respected me, and it wasn't come across as a jerk or anything like that. They respected me. We ended up forming friendships. I still keep in touch with Zach. And but yeah, the first one, man, standing there, I've never been so nervous on a first tee. And I think it was only like a 4-iron. It was just to get it and play. And I'm like, please go straight, please go straight. But really exciting stuff over there.
Wow, that's a that's a crazy story. Yeah, man. You kind of dropped some like crazy stories in the last one too, just like that. Didn't think you'd have to step up on the first day of your first tournament there. Oh man. Yeah, like you said, super nervous. I can only imagine what that's like. Did that ever go away for you, or you still always feel a little nervous excitement?
Um, Absolutely. Always feel a little nervous and excitement. And I think that's why the majority of the guys play out there, because once you lose that nervous and excitement, then it's kind of takes away from the adrenaline rush and all the other things that you're looking forward to and why you work so hard to get there. So, if somebody tells you that they're not feeling anything, they're flat out lying to you, because whether it was my first tournament, whether it was my last tournament, whether the round meant nothing or the round meant everything, yes, there were butterflies. It was just on, to what extent. And so yeah, you face that every single time. And now I haven't been playing competitive out there, running around a couple little mini tour here, events here and there. But I like to play for some money, and I like to play for enough money to give me those feelings, and because that's why you do it, man. I mean, there's not really any fun or excitement standing over a 3-footer, and it doesn't matter if it goes in or not. You just rake it and go to the next hole. That's not what golf is, but it's definitely you have them. If you don't, if you say you don't, you're lying.
I just wanted to hear a PGA Tour winner say that, so everyone listening this feels that, because I think that people feel like they're not supposed to feel like that, or they feel them too much. And it's like Tiger, has always said that he still felt them, and so it's just good to hear someone that's actually won on the PGA Tour say it. So that way, when all the listeners are in their first club championship or in their first skins game and they feel a little nervous, it's okay. It's like that's absolutely part of it. I guess then to kind of build on that, what are some ways that you build that confidence on the first tee? Is it just expectation management, or is there a certain routine that you had just to be like, hey, this is part of it? Like, how would you recommend people kind of calm themselves down?
I think great question. I don't have an exact answer, but as you just brought up, a lot of people, their first skins game, their first club championship. And if I go to a club championship, let's go with that example. And the reason I watch so many people fail in club championships, you watch a 4 handicap that for now 2 days he can't break 80. It's because they're have those nerves, they have those feelings that they don't get when they play the other couple days a week with their buddies and they're playing a $5 Nassau, and it doesn't matter if they miss the putt, make the putt, they lose 20, they win 20, it's not really a big deal. So when people ask me that, I say that the only way that you can start to get more comfortable and start to excel in those situations is you have to put yourself in those situations more often. And the way I tell people to do that, well, if you're really comfortable playing a $5 Nassau with your buddies, let's maybe bump it up to a $15 or a $20 Nassau, where now you don't want to lose the $45 or the $60. There's much more on the line, because now it means something to you. And like I brought up, the 3-footer, that's where these guys struggle, man. They're so used to raking the 3 and 4 footers that now in the club championship, I watch them, they stand over it for 3 times longer than they normally do. And then half the time you see a stroke that they normally don't make because they feel it in their fingers and their hands and in their body. And they say, well, how do I get past that? And the only way to get past that is to put yourself in that position more often. And it doesn't have to be money, and it doesn't have to be a substantial amount of money. It could be whatever, push-ups, whatever you want to make it, but it has to be something that is meaningful to you that you don't want to lose, because that's how you get those feelings over the 3 and the 4 footers, or that tee ball on 9 that normally you just stand up and pipe down the middle. And now all of a sudden you're noticing the bunker on the left and the water on the right, and then you hit a shot that you've never hit. It's not because you lost your golf swing. It's not because you forgot how to play golf. It's because you've never been in those positions. And that's what made the really elite players on the tour, Tiger and Dustin and Koepka, those guys continually put themselves in those positions so they get really comfortable. And that's like, if you look at Tiger in his prime, he thrived in those moments because he was there every time. And it wasn't, those guys did fold and they laid down for him because they had never been in that atmosphere and with those crowds and the people yelling. It was like when, I can go back to Riviera rounds playing with Mickelson and Ernie Els on a Sunday. And it was like, I played great. I was in a zone, ended up losing in a playoff, but I hadn't experienced that. The ball's going further. All of a sudden, I'm seeing things that I didn't see in the previous rounds, and troubles that starts to lurk in. So the only way that you can really start to get better at it and practice it. Like we practice our 3-footers, we practice hitting the golf ball. You need to practice being in that situation, and you have to play for something that is meaningful enough that you care. Because if you're not doing that and you don't care about losing the $20, then you're never going to have those feelings that you need, And that is what I would recommend, and that's the way I would go.
Yeah, you got to practice like you play. Ryan and I were talking about that earlier too. Like, man, those 3-footers feel like 6 if you're not putting them out and you've been just dragging them for a couple of years, and all of a sudden you enter into a tournament. Those things get pretty dicey real quick.
No question. And my favorite thing to do is when we're playing team matches or individual, through the front 9, I give every 2 and 3-footer, man, because I want you to not have putted one on the back 9. And all of a sudden you're expecting me to say, hey, pick it up. It's good. And now you got to mark your ball and you're thinking and your mind's racing. And hey, it's still the same 2 or 3-footer, but now it means something. And that's the only difference, man, is it means something versus not meaning something. And that sends that electricity and that adrenaline through your body that you don't know how to handle because you're not there often enough.
I actually have a match play event coming up next week, and I think I might have to add that process in a little bit, let them get comfy on the front 9 and then make them earn it on the back.
Make your move on the back 9, man.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing too that you noted there, I thought is something I've seen a lot. I've read a lot of studies about it as well, and a lot of guests have talked about it. It's just standing over the ball too long. It's like if you're like, and I fell into this trap too, like early on 2016, 2017, when I was getting back into competitive golf. It's easy to feel like if I spend more time over it, it means I want it more. It means I care more. Like I understand the intention a lot of people have, but after a certain point, it's diminishing returns, and all of a sudden you're just going down, and now all these fears and doubts, and is this the right read? And what if I miss this putt? All this stuff comes in. So yeah, I always recommend players like get super comfortable with that shot behind it, or wherever you're doing your routine at, and then when you're over it, it's time to go. Like if we're standing over it too long, that's just a lot of time, unless you're incredibly mentally rock solid, which most amateur golfers are not. Like it's just going to be very, very challenging to get the best out of your performance.
Yeah, as those seconds tick away that you're standing over the ball, it's not the thoughts of, oh, this is going to be the greatest shot I've ever hit. Oh, that is not. If that was the case, we'd all stand over it for way longer. What comes in is, oh my gosh, I've never pulled one, but what happens if I pull one? What happens if I hit in the water? And like you just let these bad things creep into your mind, which then takes away from your normal athletic ability, and you make a swing or a move at it that you've never made because you did it to yourself. And golf is such a game of we get in our own way, man. I mean, if you go back to the saying of, beware of the hungover, the sick golfer, when I won on the PGA Tour, I went to the hospital after Friday night. And I shot 64 on Friday. I played so wonderfully and didn't miss a shot because I didn't care where the ball went. I was trying to get through the day. So I had no expectations. I had no negative things popping in my head as far as my golf game. And that's when you can just play your best golf because you're not in your own way.
I had a flu game last year where I puked 7 times on the back 9 and shot the lowest round I ever had. And one of the lowest rounds of the season. And my playing competitors they were so confused of what was going on. I wasn't hungover. It was like just a bad, a little too much medication on a bad back and not enough food. And it was the funniest thing because like after the round, they were like, what happened? And I've definitely been on the hungover side too, but it's so funny. Like you said, we get in our own way, and golf tends to attract those type A's that, want to control everything. We want to do our best. We want to, beat this person. We want to show this person at the club, whatever it is. And it's like sometimes caring less is how you actually play your best. We got off the first tee. Now let's get into kind of the middle of the round, because this is where I'm really curious of what it's like on the tour, on the highest levels of golf. Like, are you just trying to plot your way around the course? Are you looking at the leaderboard? Do you have a game plan for every hole, every pin? Like, take me through that kind of process just to kind of pick your brain on how a PGA Tour winner goes about that. Because it's, 72 holes, that's a lot of golf. So it's like you can't be firing and everything. You can't play too aggressive. What does that process look like for you?
For me, my coach, Glenn Milliken, in college taught me this. And when he first taught me that, I was like, what are we talking about? And still to this day, whether it's playing with my buddies or playing in a tournament, my main goal is to start the first 3 holes even par and finish the last 3 holes even par. Because if I start out with some solid pars, I start to get a little bit comfortable. I get my feet underneath me. I can get cruising. And then I try to make my move on the middle holes. And then if I do make a great move, I want to play those last 3 holes even par. I'm not trying to turn up, I'm not 5 under through 15 and trying to get to 8 under necessarily. What I'm trying not to do is get too excited. And now I bogey 2 in my last 3 holes, still shoot 3 under. It's a nice round, but I'm going home and I'm upset and I'm distraught and I'm wondering if I'm losing my game. So I think that for me, like I just said, the first 3 holes, get your feet underneath you, get a little rhythm, get a nice feel for the day, then kind of make your move. And then just on the way in, I mean, granted, yeah, if you got 2 reachable par 5s or something like that, you might want to make a birdie. But at the end of the day, you don't want to give back what you spent the last 15 holes working so hard for. And that's what you hear. Guys all the time say, oh man, I had my first chance to break in, shoot in the 70s. They start thinking about it. They start maybe taking a chance. They start maybe over swinging. And then before you know it, that 79 is turned into an 84 and 85 in a matter of 3 holes. And they're like, what the heck just happened? But as far, I used to swing for the fences, go find it and do it again. And now that I've gotten older and a little more mature, my strength is my wedges, my 9-iron and in 150 yards and in. And so I like to get my golf ball in that 100 to 150 yard range because I'm super comfortable. I know that even if I hit a bad shot from that range, I'm still going to be pulling out the putter and I don't have to fire it every single hole. I used to keep a statistics sheet in my yardage book next to my pin sheet of all the average distances for tour players from 100 to 150. Because when you're standing over that ball at 120, you're telling yourself, all right, dude, it's got to be to 3 feet. It's got to be to 3 feet. Well, the average, and this is a handful of years ago, and I'm sure it's changed significantly and my numbers might be slightly off. But let's say from 120 yards in the middle of the fairway, the best players in the world might be only hitting it to 25 feet on average. So you as an amateur to be standing over that ball, you should be telling yourself, hey, if I hit this thing on the green, it's a great shot. Does it sound flashy and great? No, but it takes that extra little pressure off yourself that, hey, I got to hit a good one. I got to hit a good one instead of saying, hey, man, there's a 4,000 square foot green out there that if I get myself on that surface, I get to use my putter, probably going to make a par at the worst, give myself a chance at 3. I just think that we get so caught up and enamored in hitting perfect shots and good shots. And we might hit 1 or 2 of those around. So if we're constantly trying to take on things that require a perfect shot, 99% of the time, you're going to be unsuccessful, man. So if you broaden that landing zone or expand your target, and now all of a sudden you start hitting 3 or 4 greens in a row instead of you're firing at flags and you hit 2 and you didn't get up and down 2. Now you're even par. You're building some momentum. You're not sitting there saying, gosh, I was 130 yards out 4 holes in a row and now I'm 2 over. You probably made some mistakes mentally and with your targets as opposed to, but I mean, you start getting out to 140, 150 yards. I mean, we're talking 30 feet is the average from the best player. Your listeners might say, yeah, right. I watch these guys on the weekend. They're a lot closer than that. Well, you're right. You are watching the best players on the world on Saturday and Sunday at the very top of their game. So yes, it might be a little bit closer than the average, but the overall average, it's not as impressive as you might think, man. And I think and I preach this when I teach, you got to manage your expectations, man. You can't be an 8 handicap thinking you're going to have a scratch day because you're going to shoot 15 over instead because you're just putting too much on yourself. Let's just make baby steps, pars. For some people are wonderful, bogeys are another, but let's not sit here and say, oh, had a great range session, didn't miss a shot, and I go out and I snap hook my first ball. Do you think you lost your golf swing in the 30-yard walk from the tee? No, everything speeds up. You lost your tempo, you lost your focus, whatever it is. But people get so caught up in hitting perfect shots, and if that's your game, you should probably sell your clubs and move on.
It's like if you could put my whole book and 300 episodes into one little 2-minute session that you just gave, that was it, honestly. Because in my book, I referenced the exact stats you say. My most viral post on Instagram are the ones where I said, one of them that I posted was the average PGA player hits, I think, 57% of fairways. And people were like, just just all in the comments, which made it go viral, which was awesome. But and again, I'm not saying these guys like you aren't great. It's just that, like you said, we get brainwashed. We're watching the best players, the best weeks of their career. It's not average. And so it's like so refreshing to hear you say that. And I really like the 3-and-3 approach. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, it is nice when you get off to a comfortable start like that and you feel like you're not having to scramble too hard at the beginning. You're not playing too aggressive. And this is the last point that I really want people to hear and think about is that kind of like expectation management from the 120 to 150. Because like you said, you probably hit a good drive. Let's say you're a 8 handicap, you hit a good drive, you're 120 out, you don't get a lot of these opportunities. Then you go into, like you just said, this is time to get one back. This is time to fire at the flag. And then you just short side yourself, and all of a sudden you make bogey or double, and just because you tried to play too aggressive. I've never heard of anyone carrying the average though in their yardage book. I think that's a great idea. I might have to adopt that.
Yeah, it was just it wasn't my idea. It was my caddy's idea. And he's like, hey, let's put this in here. And then every time we've got a yardage, let's just go look. And that'll just give you, and to be honest, it really did. It just took a little of the heat or a little bit of pressure off of me, allowed me to make a better swing, a more consistent swing. And my score started to come down. And, from 100 yards, let's just say it was 20 feet. I might get up there and I might have hit a shot to 12 feet. Well, from 100 yards, that isn't that great. But then when I refer back and I'm like, dude, the best players in the world are averaging 20 feet. So that was actually better. I want to constantly be building momentum and confidence instead of knocking myself down, because this game will knock you down all day long. So you got to do the little things to build your momentum and build your confidence to get you through the 18 holes or however long it might be. One other thing I want to share real quick. So when I went to Q school, I went 5 years in a row. I walked through first stage every single time. I got to second stage, and then I thought I had to play perfect golf. 5 years in a row, I didn't even show up for the final round of second stage at Q school because I was so far out of it. Like a 59 wouldn't even have done it. So I'm like, heck with it. I'm out of here. So I'm talking to my buddy, and he says, Charlie, I was reading some statistics, and it says that if you average 1 under par per 9 holes starting in first stage, you will get a tour card. And I thought to myself, no way. So I went back and started looking at different sites. And I'm like, holy cow. That gave me the freedom to understand that I could make a bogey or two and only, I didn't have to play perfect golf. When you think about a great player trying to get a tour card and all he's trying to do is average 1 under par for 9 holes, that seems totally manageable and reasonable, and you can meet those expectations. But when you're out there from 220 yards and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to hit this to 6 feet and make birdie, otherwise I'm losing shots. Good luck. Because I was that guy. I did it. I thought you had to play perfect golf. And once you understand that you're never going to play perfect golf, so let's try to just manage what we have and what we can do, and let's get rid of the double bogeys, or let's turn what was going to be a double bogey into a bogey just because we thought a little bit better. But everybody thinks you have to play perfect, and that just makes this game so much harder. And so I went back to Q school the next year, and I had that same mindset. And sometimes I would shoot even or 1 over par on 9 holes. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now I can shoot 2 or 3 under, and I'm right back on track to where I want to be, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, it's over. I got to shoot 29 on the back or I'm out of it. And so it always just gave me the confidence to know that I could get to where I needed to be. But that's called breaking it down and making it very simple and manageable. And those are realistic things. Going out and shooting 5 under a round is not realistic, unless nowadays on the Corn Ferry Tour, you shoot 5 under a round, you're getting lapped, which is insanity. But for the average guy, break it down. If you're a 10 handicap, let's go out. Let's try to shoot 41 on the front 9. You might feel a little bit easier if you go par on the first, you're gaining some confidence. You're like, okay, now I can make a handful of bogeys, but I'm still ahead of the curve. And so that's how you got to play this game, is you got to play mind games with yourself.
It's so true. As I was telling Ryan earlier, I said sometimes it's like negotiating with a terrorist, though. It's like if things are going poorly, it's like you got a lot of different voices, a lot of commentary up there. But yeah, it is funny, like all the little games that you play. And like we talked about earlier, it's like getting in the arena, getting more reps so you can figure out what game works for you. Sometimes you need to hype yourself up. Sometimes you need to calm yourself down. You got to figure out, different strategies and stuff like that. So when things are going well in the middle of the round, this is where I'm curious, because a lot of people reach out and say, hey, I'm great on the front, I fold on the back, or, I made a bunch of birdies and then I realized, I added up my score and now I'm, really screwing up the next few holes. So when things are going well for you, what's the strategy? Is it like, do you acknowledge it? Do you say, hey, we're going to keep going? Is it one shot at a time? Like, what do you do and what do you recommend players to do? Because I feel like most of us just get way too far ahead of ourselves.
I agree 100%. As far as for me, like, and again, this is a little game that I always played with myself, and the dollar increments changed based on what tournaments I was playing in. But we always hear the cliche saying, it's just one shot at a time. That's all that matters. Yeah, that's easy to say, but when you're, going or whatever. But what I did is at a certain point on the tour, I was like, all right, if I hit this fairway, it's $50. All right, if I hit this green, it's $50. If I miss it, I got to donate $50. And at the end of the week, I would either take the money that I had accumulated and I would go buy myself something to reward myself. And if I lost that money, I donated it to charity. So I had this little game that I played, and that allowed me to at least have somewhat of an idea of what it was like to just focus on that shot. Because you're right, if things are going really good, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm even par, or I'm 3 over. I'm going to try to get it to 1 over. Then you get to 7 over, and you it's really hard to stay in the moment. But I think that you just have to understand what your golf game is. Like, if you're in the middle of the round and you're getting ready to hit a stretch of 3 par 4s that are 470, you've got to just tell yourself, hey, par is a great score, man. And if I somehow make a long putt or somehow I hit a great iron shot in there, cool. But the last thing I want to do is now I don't want to bogey 2 of those 3 holes, So like, there's drivable par 4s where, heck yeah, I could absolutely drive the green, but if something goes wrong, I'm making double. So I'll hit a 7 iron off the tee. I take the big number out of play. I know I can wedge it onto the green, from 100 yards, and I know that's not flashy. And that's where I think the game is in a really tough spot right now, because everybody wants lower scores, but also everybody wants to hit it further. And those two things are really, really hard to put together, man. And being in this teaching for the last 4 or 5 months, I thought I'd seen it all in golf, from being a junior to taking it to winning on the tour. These people, I am seeing things that I didn't ever even knew existed and stuff like that. But it's like, hey, do you want to really hit it really far and have an ego? And yeah, you might hit it 330, but we're going to hit it in 4 houses per round. Or let's tone it down to 300 and we might shave 8 strokes off of our game. Yeah, your buddies might not say, hey, you're the longest player I've ever played with, but I would rather have my handicap go from a 12 to a 6 because I decided to tone it down a little bit. But I think you just have to understand the golf courses. And like, for me, when I was playing, I would break down a golf course. I'd be like, all right, how many wedges is this course giving me? And whether it was a par 5 that I could go 4 and 2, or I had to lay up, I would consider those wedge holes. And that's where I would take advantage, or try to take advantage. But if, I'm hitting an 8 iron into a par 4, I'm aiming at the middle of the green, because then I can pull it, then I can push it, then I can maybe catch one and it goes a little long, or I hit one a little heavier, a little thin, and it comes up a little short, but I've got the putter in my hand, man. And I'm a good player, and I'm aiming at the middle of the green from, let's say, to be honest with you, once I get outside 150, 155, like, I'm aiming at the middle of the green most often, because to hit a golf ball 155 yards and longer where you want to is a very difficult task, even for a great player. So if I expand my region that I can have air in, again, I can tap in for the 2-putt par or whatever, and I move to the next tee instead of stressing on and up and down, or doing something like this, and then you kill everything. But I think you have to understand your golf game a little bit before you can kind of try to pick apart or a course. But I thrive off of course management. I love course management. I'm playing with these kids that they pull driver every time, just like I used to. And I might have 100 yards in on some holes more than them, because I'm playing to the fat part of the fairway. Granted, I might still have 130 in, but they're hitting it up there to 60 yards and in. And if they suck from 60 yards, why do you want to keep putting yourself there? So like, if your game is terrible from 100 and in, how about let's not put ourselves there, And so it's just about understanding where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and then, hey, let's not hit it where our weaknesses are, because you can control that, And that's just it's the little things like that that make the big difference. And it's funny because everybody wants to come to me. A perfect example. This guy comes to me today for a lesson, the most energy enthusiastic guy that I've probably taught, man, and just really excited. And I'm watching his golf swing and the ball is just going right and right and right. But I'm looking at his golf swing and I'm like, everything looks really nice, man. So I'm like, hey, what club are you hitting? He's like, oh, I'm hitting an 8-iron. And I said, how far do you think you hit it? And he goes, well, I hit it about, 155. And I'm like, all right, that's reasonable. That's not asking too much. So I said, all right, all I'm going to do on this next shot, I don't want you to swing easier. I don't want you to take anything off of it. The only thought I want you to have in your brain is maybe 135. So he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So why he was hitting, I was just saying 135 out loud. Our brains are so smart that they'll make the manipulation for us. We don't have to do it. And all of a sudden, the ball's coming out of the middle of the face. It's flying dead straight. It's going further because he's hitting it now with a square club face versus a glancing blow on an open or closed face. And so, like, I think today I tweaked his ball position and something else, and the dude's hitting it like he's never hit it. A lot of these guys and amateurs, you have a decent foundation. I mean, if you're hitting a 60-yard slice, yeah, you got to have some work. But I have a lot of guys that come to me, that are in the 80 to 90 range. And you know what? I think an 80 to 90 range player is a pretty good player. This is a hard game, man. But everybody wants to swing it so freaking hard because they think that's how they hit it far, when really, if I can get you to slow down and hit it with a square club face, not only one, are we going to be more consistent, it actually might go further. But what the real kicker is the ball is going to be working towards the target. We're not going to hit any of these that go 20 yards right or left of the green. And now I've got some impossible chip over a bunker, and then I flub it in the bunker. And I was thinking about making par. Now I'm tapping in for a double. And so my way, and I'm sorry to just totally get off topic, my way of teaching, and I think the reason I've had so much success in a short amount of time, is I want to hammer the fundamentals out of these guys, man. Like most of these guys, you go get a lesson and you guys have hit 8 shots and you're looking at an iPad for a half an hour trying to get into a perfect position, when one, you play golf 3 weekends a month and you don't hit any balls. So how the heck am I going to get a new position ingrained? I mean, as pros, for 20 years, I was hitting balls 7 or 8 hours a day to get where I needed to be. And you want to get to this position in 3 18-hole rounds? Let's manage our expectations, So I think, boy, for the majority of these golfers, if they want to lower their scores, they get the fundamentals a little bit better and they swing a little bit softer. And I know it's not glamorous, but at the end of the day, I think everybody's trying to get their handicap to go down and not up. And so that's the easiest way to do it from what I've found and had some success at.
There's so much gold in that one as well. One thing that stuck out to me is, like you said, just the power of your mind and getting like really clear and saying, hey, we're going to hit this 135 instead of 155. When you were, on the tour, when you're in a tournament, are you saying to yourself before, or when you have your caddy, like, I want this wedge to go 135? Are you trying to always have a carry number and that's like the last thing you say or think about, or what's that like?
1,000%. If I was in a golf tournament right now and you were caddying for me and we're standing in the middle of the fairway, and let's say that the pin is in the front of the green, I would like to know the front number, because what the minimum carry is to get my ball green, and I'd like to know what the pin number is. And after that, if I hit it long, that's okay because I'm still on the green. Just like if the pin was in the back, I'd like to know what the number is to the middle of the green, is kind of my safe play. And I'd like to know the number to the pin, but I'd also like to know the number to the back edge. Because let's just say, making up numbers, if the back edge is 170 and the pin is 166, well, if I catch this 8-iron nice, I'm going to go over the back of the green and be faced with a tough chip. So let's take the 9-iron, play to the middle fat part of the green, and let's accept 25 or 30 feet as a great shot. It doesn't have to be 6 feet to be a great shot. But the most important thing about that is I'm understanding where I can and can't hit it, and then I'm taking the club based off of that, instead of, oh, the pin's 172. I hit my 6-iron 172. Let's go. And then all of a sudden you blow one over the green, and then you're in a downhill bunker and you're dead, or you come up short or whatever. But just talking about carry numbers, if you really want to improve as an amateur, go figure out your carry numbers, because I guarantee you, you tell me you hit a 7-iron 150, it probably actually only carries like 135 to 140. And then you look at me and you say, I hit that one really good, but it's short of the green. That's on you, because you don't know your numbers. It doesn't, when you're hitting an approach shot into the green, it doesn't matter how far the ball rolls out. You can't calculate that into your distance, because all you care about is how far you carry it, man. And in today's golf world that's so excited about how far they can hit it, nobody hits it as far as they say. They're all liars, man, for sure. And it cracks me up. But as an amateur, to your viewers, man, if you really want to improve your game, go either get on a TrackMan, go do an hour on a simulator, and hit the 9-irons with a normal smooth swing and see how far it actually goes. And I bet you it's going to be about 10 yards less than you think, but it's going to save you, again, a lot of shots.
I hate to keep plugging my own book here, but you literally stole 2 chapters right there from it. No, I'm totally messing with you. It's just so funny because I say the same thing too. It's like, 1, know your distances. Most people just don't. And 2, club up most of the time, because most of the big trouble is short. Sometimes it's long, but most of it's short. And most people, like we said, have to, don't know their distances. And then they rely on having to hit it 100% perfect to get there. And we're just, putting ourselves in a tough spot. So I'm glad you could kind of elaborate on that too, in that thought process. I think that's really fun. I think people really like to know what that's like when you have a caddy. And I really like having a caddy, when you go play a bucket list course and you have someone to kind of talk shots out with. I think a lot of players would benefit from that, because, when I'm playing like practice rounds, I get paired with, mid handicappers, just, average golfers that aren't playing in a tournament. And I'm just, I just like watching and seeing what they're doing. And you're so right. They just get up there, they laser it. And it's just like you said, 160, this is my 6-iron. And they're just, it's like, whoa. Like let's spend a second here and kind of reverse engineer it. But it's like, if you just, I think rangefinders are a gift and a curse. They take away a lot of the thinking that we need.
Right. And that's why people always ask me the question, hey, do you think rangefinders would speed up play? And for some players, yes, but I would say the majority of the players, no, because they aren't giving up that yardage book, because that has the important numbers you need. 3 bunkers, the distance between the bunker and the pin and so forth. The rangefinder doesn't give you that. But going back real quick, and you were talking about clubbing up. If these guys club up, these amateurs club up, yes, if they have that big of an ego that they can't, but then all of a sudden subconsciously they know that they can't swing as hard as they can, and then all of a sudden they absolutely flush one because they slowed everything down and made better contact, and they're like, wow. But then they go to the next hole and they're swinging for the fences again, but clubbing up is never a bad idea, man, ever. If I'm in between clubs, between a 6 and a 7, I'm pulling the 6 every time, because I know a mishit is still going to get me to where I need to be versus absolutely catching that 7 perfect, man.
So the 4th pillar of Wicked Smart Golf is all about becoming a wedge wizard, and it sounds like your wedge game is dialed. So before kind of getting into like how to finish the round, I want to talk a little bit just about what do you feel like, because it feels like if you have a wedge, and Ryan actually kind of talked about it in our interview too, just saying how he's played with you and you've hit 18 greens countless times. So what are some like tips that you have for wedges? Because I feel like that is such a low-hanging fruit. I think expectation management, like we talked about a little bit, probably will help everybody. But is it a setup? Is it the right wedges? Like, what do you feel like is helped you, or that you see even during those playing lessons that are hurting amateurs?
A couple things. Great question. I don't ever hit more than a 9-iron on the range, because if I can't hit my 9-iron and my wedges solid, what the heck makes me think I'm going to hit my 7-iron or my driver solid? But if I've got a tournament coming up, or even if I've got an hour to kill in the afternoon, I might go down to the range and I'm going to hit 10 balls from 90, 10 from 100, and I'm going to go in 10-yard increments up to 150 yards. And not only is that going to really teach you how far you hit it, but it's also going to groove a beautiful tempo, because you're not trying to crush the wedges. But for me, I would say for the majority of the amateurs that I see, they're like, man, I blade my wedges. I hit my wedges fat. Sometimes they go this far. And then I look at their ball position and it's positioned where a driver is. I make the same golf swing on every single wedge. The only thing I do to hit it higher or hit it lower is move the ball position in my stance. And I would say that I do not hit a wedge that is not at least in between the middle of my stance and the back of my stance. If you're playing a wedge in the middle of your stance, in my opinion, you are ready or hoping to get lucky. To be honest, I would say that 90% of my wedges are almost played off of I'm a right-hander, almost played off of my right big toe, because then I know I'm going to get the same contact. I'm going to get the same trajectory every single time. I don't really have the ball so far forward that I'm already going to start coming up and may blade one, or I kind of decel and chunk it. The ball's in the back where it's coming down. I'm going to hit that. And I don't I don't think I've ever swung full at a wedge because I'm not trying to hit it high and far. I'm trying to hit a lower, more piercing, controlled ball flight where when it hits the green, I know how it's going to react. And the best part about having it way farther back in your stance is, yes, it would be awkward at first for somebody to move it from the front to the back, but I watch it daily and I do it daily with people and they show me to 70 yards, they fat, thin. And then I move it back and they're like, well, I can't do this. And then it comes out of the middle of the face and they look at me like, what just happened? And I'm like, I know, man. But if you're swinging full at a wedge, like a full pitching wedge for me, I mean, maybe 135. And to be honest, with a wedge, if I can get a back pin every time, I'm licking my chops because I want to land that ball in the middle of the green and skip it back there. I'm not trying to fly it 10 feet past the hole and spin it back. I want to keep everything in front of me. And by flighting it and not swinging for the fences, I can now control it. And yeah, I might slightly pull one or push one, but it's 10 or 15 feet left or right of the pin. It's not off the green when you had a scoring opportunity. But if you look at a driving range, whether it's public or private or whatever it is, you don't ever see anybody hitting wedges, man. They're smoking 7-irons, then going to the hybrid, hitting the driver and having a cocktail. Like that really, yeah, if you're loosening your body and warming up. But if I'm going out there and swinging 7-irons and drivers and swinging lights out, boy, things are not going to go good when I go to the golf course because everything starts to subconsciously move faster because now there's consequences for your bad shots. So if you're on the range swinging those clubs full bore and then you go to the first tee, you might as well enter a long drive contest because that's how hard you're going to be going. But the wedges is where you score, or if you're struggling off the tee that day and you got to punch out a few times, you pick your favorite number and then you know you've got an opportunity. Yeah, you might make a bogey, but you sure as heck aren't going to make a double. And it's not glamorous, I know. And, you know, everybody and that's what I talked about. Everybody wants to hit it far and long, and they see these guys on TV, but they also don't see the 8 hours a day that they're working to put the timing in to be able to do that. For the average guy, go hit your wedges, and then all of a sudden when you grab your 7-iron, you hit your 7-iron better than you've ever hit it. Yeah, your swing is there. Your swing is fine. You just swing too dang hard.
Yeah, I like that too. And if you're hitting more wedges, you know, when you do get in trouble and you got to punch out, you can get up and down more often. So it helps your tempo. It helps your short game. It's a win-win. I like that. And kind of for the last part of the round, we kind of covered first tee jitters. We covered a lot of great strategy, what to do mid-round. What about those last few holes? Because that's when the nerves really kick in. That's when all of a sudden you're seeing yourself at the trophy. You're seeing yourself win the flight, win those skins, whatever it is. And again, you have won on the biggest stages in the world. So what was your experience like when that first PGA Tour win? Are you thinking like, every shot is worth this much money? Are you thinking like, I have to win this? This is my time. What was your experience like, and what can the everyday golfer do to close and finish strong? Because there's nothing worse than ending on a bad note.
Correct. You know, for me, I tell myself the last 3 holes, if I make 3 pars, regardless or whatever, at least I'm not going to be upset. I didn't give a shot back by not making birdie. You didn't give a shot back by making a bogey or whatever, but everybody experiences that. When I won Disney, we had hit driver off the 18th hole every single day of the tournament. And we get there and my caddy pulls out an iron and I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, we have a 3-shot lead. We are not hitting a driver. So I hit a 5-iron. And then I hit an 8-iron short of the green. And then I chipped on and 2-putted for the win. Was it cool and fun to watch for people? Probably not. But I had a job to accomplish. And that was the best way for me to accomplish that job. On the other side of it, at the US Open at Chambers Bay, I birdie like 11, 14, 15. And I'll never forget this. I stood in the middle of the fairway. I stood in the middle of the fairway on 14. And I looked at the leaderboard and Spieth was leading at the time. And I looked at my caddy and I said, dude, if we make 2 birdies, we're going to win the US Open. And I hit it on the green on 14 and I 3-putted and I went to Parred 15. I went to 16. I'm like, all right, if I birdie these last three, I could still win this US Open. I three putt 16. I par 17, which is a drivable one, or 16. And then I go to 18, which I have a 3-iron in my hand for par 5 and 2, hit it over the back, get a really bad break, make bogey. But there I was thinking about winning the US Open instead of just that shot in front of me. And yes, it's so much easier to say than to do, for sure. But I think, for whether it's, you're a 10 or 8, a 10, a 12 handicap, just put some expectations. Understand that, going par, bogey, if you're a 10 handicap on the last three, is still a great job, man. And it's and I think the reason that we all fail when we start to do that is because subconsciously in our brain, the blood's pumping faster, everything gets going more excited. We didn't lose our golf swing, we didn't lose our putting stroke, but everything is happening so fast and you're not making a clear and great decision. And that, I know that 99% of the guys don't have caddies, but that is where a great caddy makes his money, is they are able to slow you down, bring you back, focus on this shot. And again, I do things as like, hey man, if I can just get this ball in the fairway, then it's in the fairway. Then I just try to get it on the green. Then it's on the green. Then I just try to two putt. You got to break it down into things that you can achieve to just kind of slow everything down, man. Because if you're playing great up to the last 3 holes, your swing's there, everything's there. You should have a nothing but confidence. But when we start thinking ahead of ourselves, everything starts happening so fast to the point where, like, sometimes I would get done and I'd be like, I don't even remember playing those 3 holes, because everything went so fast. Made 2 bogeys, whatever, and on the other end, I had a wonderful caddy when I lost at Riviera, and we're coming down the stretch. I end up making a 20-footer on the 18th hole to get into a playoff and eventually lose. But we really slowed it down. We took our time. We spent a little extra time. And I get the question a lot from these amateurs is, oh, I don't want to play slow. I don't want to hold up the guys. I feel like I'm holding everybody up. Here's what I tell you to think about. Let's take that extra 7, 10, 20 seconds to give ourselves a better chance to hit a better shot. Because if I get up there in rapid fire, because I'm worried about, slow play or people, I'm slowing them down or they might think I slow. Well, now I just missed the green. So actually I take longer to go hit the next shot because I got to walk over there and do that. So it's all about playing these little games with yourself. And, it's very tough to do. And at the highest level, you watch guys. Talk about the guy at the Wyndham Championship last week. What do you have? A 5-shot lead with 5 or 6 holes to go, and then he makes a quadruple and a bogey. The dude had a 5-shot lead on tour. That doesn't happen. So his game was absolutely incredible, but he started getting ahead of himself and started thinking. And I don't know him, and I don't know his caddy, but I would probably think that his caddy is a rookie or a new guy and hadn't been in that situation. So now you put 2 heads spinning at 100 miles an hour, and who knows you saw what could happen, a complete meltdown.
Yeah.
It's not because he lost his golf swing or his putting stroke. It's because just everything moved at a pace that he wasn't used to.
Man, there's some really good stuff there. I didn't realize that was your US Open was at Chambers Bay. I remember watching that one, and that course looked almost borderline dumb hard. It was really, I remember even Jordan, when he won, was not my favorite course. It was, I remember watching that though. That was what, 2015?
It took a lot of heat. I was playing with Horschel on Saturday, and he was throwing a fit and complaining for greens, but it's the same for everybody. So
right.
You're throwing the fit about the course conditions. You're the only one that's causing you problems. Everybody has to play them. Everybody's going to catch a good break. Everybody's going to catch a bad break. But back to Chambers Bay. I thoroughly enjoyed it because it was the only time where I've been standing in the fairway at 120 and my caddy's like, hey dude, see that mound that's 50 feet left over there? We've got to hit the pitching wedge over there to get the ball to over here. So I enjoyed that aspect of that golf course. Did the greens suck? Absolutely they did. And everybody was going to miss short putts. So you might as well at least just have a good attitude, because a good attitude is going to go a long way in this game, because half the people, their attitude is going to take them right out of the competition,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. I can't imagine how hard that is to have that attitude when you are playing for millions of dollars and status and keeping your card and everything like that. And that's where obviously the mental game just is just such a grind out there. And I can see how, like we talked about in our last interview, just how it can wear you down and how it can really take the fun out of it sometimes because it's just such a mental grind. I know we're kind of running out of time here, but just wanted to see if there's anything else from those playing lessons that you do, because again, if you guys are in Arizona and you want to learn more about working with a PGA Tour winner and getting some instant stuff, I think that we talked about a little bit before we hit record, like you're not as into the TrackMan stuff yet, or are still getting that, but you're more about real world stuff. What can we do right now, like you said with the wedges? I think if anyone just got that from this interview and just they would improve their wedge game, they'd improve their tempo, like a lot of stuff. So is there anything else you see either off the tee or into the greens that you're like, wow? Because I know that when you're at the PGA Tour level, you're not playing obviously with the pro-ams, but other than that, you're probably not playing with a lot of mid caps. So it's like, what are you seeing now that you're working with players?
I see. I would say the number one thing I see is course management. Is these guys want to pull off the head cover and they want to hit it when I'm like, and then so we'll go play 2 holes with 2 balls, and I say, all right, buddy, let's bust our driver. That's what you want to do. And on the other one, let's maybe hit the hybrid off. Well, I'll tell you what, 9 out of 10 times, the ball that we hit hybrid off versus the ball that we hit driver off beats that driver every single time, because we're playing to the fatter part of the fairways. We're making the risk and the reward not as penal if we miss it, and we're still giving ourselves an opportunity. But these playing lessons and this teaching, it's like we said, people don't know their carry distance. That's number one. And 2, everybody wants to see how far they can hit it. And that's the big dilemma in the game right now. And yeah, I have people all the time that send me emails. Hey, I want to book a lesson. What technology do you use? And I say, I don't use any. And they're like, well, I don't want to take a lesson. And I say, understandable. Here's a guy I recommend that has all that stuff. But I would be the first one to tell you that I'm new to this. I've seen the Butch Harmons. I've been through this. I got to the top. I've seen the Sean Foleys. I've seen everybody. I don't have the self-confidence to say that I can see the swing that perfectly. Like, to be honest, I don't really enjoy teaching scratch golfers or great golfers. I want the guy that's 80 to 95, because boy, I can shave 5 strokes off you in an hour lesson for sure, just through teaching you to think a little bit different and just getting the fundamentals of your swing a little bit better, man. Because my motto is, if you take a lesson from me on Wednesday, I want you to go to work on Thursday and Friday and show up Saturday with your buddies and have a chance to play much better. We're not working on these positions. We're trying to play golf, not play golf swing. And when I was playing for money and on tour, I was always trying to play golf swing, man. It had to be perfect because these people are watching. This is what this guy says to do. It doesn't have to be beautiful to shoot a low score, man. So I like to teach more about, let's simplify the swing. Let's take what you have and just kind of work with it and tweak it to where our misses aren't as bad. But I want to teach you how to play golf, because the majority of the people, whether they've been playing 30 years or 5 years, they think they know how to play golf. In reality, they don't. And even I made it all the way to the PGA Tour, and through about my 3rd season, I didn't really understand how to play the game. I just swung for the fences and went and found it, and I played well at the right time. But I'm a more of a guy that, hey, let me teach you how to play golf, not golf swing. And that's why I haven't used much technology. Like I will not video your swing unless like you ask me to, but if you ask me to, I'm just going to send it to you. I'm not going to we're not going to break it down, man, because if you're on the golf course standing over your shot into the par 4, bro, and you're thinking about, oh, I got to get it a little bit more shut and I got to keep my elbow tucked in, you're setting yourself up for failure and hoping for success. I would rather set you up for success. And then if it doesn't go your way, guess what? It's called golf. It's hard. But when you're standing over the ball and you got all these, oh, I saw this on YouTube and I saw this and I'm going to do that. And then you hit your first shot and it doesn't go how you want. So you abandon it and you go to something else. How are you ever going to get consistent? And like I said, you're setting yourself up to fail and hoping for success. And if that's how you're going to play the game, it's going to be hard. Yeah,
that's why I started Wicked Smart Golf, because I was so tired of seeing everyone on YouTube just thinking that was the answer to just shooting lower scores. I'm like, oh my god, like it's just this endless. Because then you just play golf swing, like you said, and you're just thinking out there, and it's never worked well. Like when you won your PGA Tour event, were you thinking about mechanics during that round or any of those rounds?
No, absolutely not, man. I sure wasn't. Was there a million other tournaments that I was? Absolutely. Did they result in a great finish? Absolutely not. you got to go just play golf and accept that it's hard and some days are going to go great and other days are going to go good. But the more we can set ourselves up to succeed, the better chances we have versus we can't play golf swing. We're playing golf, man. And that's my biggest thing in the teaching is I try to take what you have. If you're missing it 15 yards left, hey, if I can only get you to miss it 7 yards left, we accomplished something. I don't care where your elbow is and where there's a few things that I've got to have, and I would say the other thing to your listeners that if you're hitting it weak and you're not hitting it solid, and you're 98% of the people I come to, dude, the first thing I do is I fix their grip and the ball's coming out of the middle and it's getting out there faster. And they're like, they think I walk on water. And I'm like, well, no, dude, when you hold it so weak, you have to come over the top to square the face. And if you don't, you're going to pull one. And if you do, and it's like, hey, let's fix the basic things. And I hate to say it, but even when I was on tour, I might go in a practice round and I missed every single shot 20 feet to the right. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm coming too much from the inside. Now I'm trying to fix something that's not even there instead of, hey, was I aimed 20 feet right all day long? And the answer most likely is yes. Like if you're not checking the fundamentals, and again, it's not glamorous, but like the only connection that you have with the golf club is your grip. So if you got a bad grip, the rest of it is luck, So I just try to simplify a very complicated game. And I think that that's what people that have been coming to see me have really enjoyed. And then I'm going to start doing these short game clinics here because everybody, I think I've taught about 300 lessons now. And out of those 300, I would say 280 of them want to go directly to the driving range. And so we go hit balls and I ask them how their chipping is. And they're like, well, I'm chipping it horrible. And I'm like, well, then that's where we should probably spend the time, but that's not cool. But if you want to shave strokes, practice the stuff that's not cool and your buddies aren't doing. And before you know it, your buddies are going to start following your lead because your scores are going down. We make it so much harder than it needs to be. And that's where I just tried to simplify it because I made it more complicated. I mean, I wouldn't sleep at nights checking my positions and hotel mirrors and stuff like that. Then I go to the golf course and I'm like, how am I even supposed to take this golf club back? And I got people on top of me watching. Can't do it, man. Not going to happen.
Oh, man, you are absolutely the definition of wicked smart. And I just have one last question before that. What is the best place people can follow you, learn more about working with you? Again, playing lessons seem like just such a no-brainer. Short game lessons obviously are huge too. What's the best place for people to learn more about you?
My Instagram and my Facebook are the biggest spot, and there's a link to my calendar on those. And we're making a new video series tomorrow. Me and Old Town Golf, which is the logo here and here. He's a awesome club fitter, sells shafts at 10% over wholesale. Not going to find a better deal. Check him out, oldtowngolf.com. But for me, C Beljan, and it's funny, and a lot of people are like, dude, how come? And so I charge $125 for an hour, and people all the time, they're like, dude, how come you don't go up to Scottsdale and you don't do this where you could charge 300? For me, it's not about making money. It's about giving back to the game. And at 300, then you're just catering to a certain amount of people. I want to give back to the guys that are just getting into the game that are doing it. And $125 is still a lot of money, But like I said, dude, I love the 80 to 95 golfer because I can take 5 shots off your game in 1 hour, not guaranteed, but pretty easily. And I've had good players come to me. And when I see the good players, it's not a flaw in their swing. It's their aim 10 yards right and wondering why they're pulling them, Well, our brain's smart enough to say, hey, if I'm aimed right, but I want to go there, my brain's going to slightly shut my club face, dude. It's little things once you get to that better level. But I just enjoy the enthusiasm and the excitement from the much more average golfer. And I just enjoy giving back to everybody. And through my sobriety journey and that, I went from all about me to now, like, how can I just help as many people as I can? And it seems to be a beautiful path that I'm on.
Yeah, you're definitely giving back, man. And I have no doubts this episode will do very well. And I'm sure it'll do good on YouTube and some clips too, because you're definitely giving back. So we appreciate you sharing so much. And I guess I want to extract one last little piece of wisdom for you, and that's blow up holes. What do you do after a really bad hole? You have a stupid double or you pump one out of bounds. You just weren't committed. What's the thought process? What can people do? Because that's the top 3 things I hear is how do I stop the blow up holes? How do I avoid them or minimize them? What would you say to that?
Well, I don't know if you can necessarily stop the blow up holes when you play 3 times a month. That's just golf is going to happen. But you got to go to the next tee and you got to just take a deep breath. And I would say the number one thing is you can't come off of a triple bogey and then trying to go make 3 birdies in a row to make it back up, because you're going to be trying so hard. And a lot of times, man, I would tell the guy, unless they're a relatively decent driver of the golf ball, if we're coming off a double or triple and we're going to a par 4 where even I can hit a 3-iron or a hybrid off the tee and still have a reasonably short, let's do that. Because when you're pissed off and you're upset and you're trying to get something back and then you put that driver in your hand, it's already the club that we want to hit the hardest and hit the furthest. And now you add an extra 4, 5, 6 miles an hour of pissed off speed in there. Guess what's coming next? Your second blow up hole. Again, it's golf. It's really hard. Those are going to happen, but you just have to put it behind you. Again, all these things are so much easier said than done, but maybe don't rip the driver off the next hole, or don't say, hey, I'm going to try to make this up. Let's say I was on track to shoot 80. Let's just say, well, now I just made a triple, an 83 now is an acceptable day. That means I played the rest of the way in really nice. I'm not trying to get it back to an 80 or a 79, because that's more often than not going to result into an 85 or an 87. But again, easier said than done. But if you're not a great driver of the ball and you're coming off a blow-up hole, let's get our next ball out there in the fairway so we have a few extra minutes to kind of chill out, cool off. Then I've got a second shot at the green versus punching out or re-teeing or something like that, which gets the steam coming out of your ears, and now you're really freaking out. You just got to figure out how to just slow it down a little bit.
Absolutely. Excellent advice. Once again, Wicked Smart approved. We appreciate you coming back for the sequel here. I have no doubts this will do awesome. And just want to say thanks again for sharing so much with my audience. It's absolutely invaluable advice that I know people will really benefit from.
Cool. And again, thank you so much for having me on. And if you want to do another one sometime, but we're going to play golf in a few weeks, and maybe we'll even do some content when we do it, and we'll show you guys what it's like out on the golf course.
Absolutely. Wicked Smart Golf from Charlie. Thanks again, man.
All right, sir. Have a good night.